All right. Hi, everyone. This is Kevin with bestinbiz.net. I'm here with Robert Fukui. Robert is the owner of I-61 Business Development. He's an entrepreneur, and he has a beautiful history in business, working with pharmaceutical companies and going into marketing for a lot of professionals, and working across the country to bring a lot of entrepreneurs an avenue of growing their business, whether they're individuals, but even with couples. He has a very unique aspect that I've never heard of before, where he's working with couples directly. Robert, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me. Tell us a little bit about you and the company and what you guys do.
Yeah, our company, so it started about 6 years ago, roughly. Well, actually longer than that, but 6 years ago was when I left my corporate gig in a pharmaceutical company in marketing and sales, and then started doing consulting for marketing and sales for privately held family business. But in the midst of that, what I found early on was, they hired me for marketing help because that's my experience, expertise, quote unquote. But what I found as I started digging into the business is that they had a lot more going on besides marketing. They didn't have just a marketing issue. They really had kind of efficiency, productivity, and profitability issue. And when I say profitability, a lot of people think you solve that problem by just increasing sales. Well, when your efficiencies and productivity levels are low, means you have to work harder, which consumes more time and sometimes money. And when your profit margins are low, meaning your difference between your sales price and your costs, then you're forced to work even harder because you're working on lower margins, which means you have to make it up in a lot of volume. Unfortunately, they don't realize that sales isn't always the answer, that sometimes it's impossible for you to make up the lack of profit margin by getting more sales, because it's kind of like you're almost like chasing your tail, because when your profit margins are low, increasing sales can increase profits, but what happens is you'll get stuck at a capacity issue where you can't get to profitability. Your profits can increase so you can cover some more of your expenses, but a lot of times it doesn't get your business to profitability where you're paying yourself a good salary and seeing a net profit, a healthy net profit. But in order to get to that point, you usually have to hire more help or invest into more equipment to make make your business able to handle the increased capacity necessary for the sales then to ultimately make your business profitable. So it's kind of like chasing your tail in a lot of ways. So that's why a lot of businesses struggle and work so hard and can't figure this out. Hey, sales are growing, or they're just busier than ever, but yet their profitability isn't following suit, nor are they able to even give themselves a raise or even pay themselves a decent salary. So what happened was majority of business owners are married, and it was affecting their personal life as well, right? The more stress you carry in the business, you're going to carry it home. Yeah. And then it's going to create conflict in the marriage, which means it's going to make you just miserable even at work sometimes, or sometimes you put in more hours at work because you don't want to go home. I mean, and it creates this vicious cycle basically. And that's what we saw, that the workload, the inability for the business to be adequately profitable without having to kill themselves was affecting their personal life as well as their business. And so that's when we started to focus, or not really focus, but add in the piece about the marriage, is how do you do both well? Yeah. How do you prioritize your marriage, your family, while still growing the business? Because as I was saying earlier, is the business owner a lot of times is trying to overcome the inefficiencies and lack of profit by putting in more time. And more time in the business means they're robbing themselves from home. When those two, the more time in a business doesn't necessarily always correlate to more profits, as these business owners are saying, right? They're putting in more time, but they're just not. It's like the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and not getting a different result. So It's not about putting more time in. It's about taking a step back, looking at the business, looking at every aspect of the business, and saying, what can we improve upon? And when you're looking at from marketing to operations to even your profit margins, when you start making these little changes all across the board, that you'll find that the business can get to that level of healthy profitability where they're not having to drive more sales to do that.
I've always been a big believer, a statement I've used quite often is that's that one step back to take two steps forward.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
sometimes, yeah, you have to step back, look at it, full picture, see what's not working, and as you said, go ahead and do a little doctor's work to fix those
Yeah.
areas that need mending with that.
Hmm.
That's
Absolutely.
that's very interesting, and I love what you do. When did you discover there was that kind of need? How long did it take you working with business owners that you saw the relationships were just starting to have? You saw this consistency in relationships that needed to be addressed.
Yeah. Well, pretty quickly, I definitely saw why the business was struggling, right? That it wasn't just a marketing issue because what first, it did take me by a few clients because first they're hiring me for marketing help. So I really was focused just on the marketing. But then I started, as I'm just talking to these owners and they're starting to talk about different aspects of the business beyond just marketing. And then a lot of times, and the more you get to know them, the more they open up about their personal life. And I started seeing that, hey, there's more than a marketing issue here. And that's when, at least from the business side, I started asking them for their profit and loss statements. I started to look at how they did their operations. I just really looked at even how the business owners, where they're spending their time.
Mm-hmm.
So I just started asking questions. And then probably within about a year was when I saw like, hey, there's like a consistent issue here. It wasn't
Yeah,
just one business.
yeah.
It was a recurring issue. And also my wife, Kaylee, growing up in a family business, I mean, she was sharing the same thing from her childhood, and that her dad was having to work in the business, so he didn't have to work as hard, and so a lot of times she was sacrificing for him. Like whenever there's a family event, the dad's out, the dad and the family's going out, but someone's got to man the shop, which means Kaylee is watching the business, and so
Yeah.
she also experienced that herself growing up. And so that's when I started looking. We started looking at it deeper and deeper. And it's like, okay, this is a major issue. It's like the elephant in the room that
Yeah.
everybody realizes they're working really hard, right? But everybody's just accepting it as normal, that this is the way it's got to be. This is the way it is. And they just accept it at that. I mean, you'll hear about small business, they'll talk about, just working hard. We don't get time off. We're small business. We don't get time off. We can't do this. We can't do that. Right. And which is
Yeah.
ironic because most business owners started to gain more freedom. I don't want to work for the man, so I'm going to, work for myself so I can create my own schedule, right? And next thing
Absolutely.
you know, they're more enslaved to the business than if they had a W-2 job.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And at least you're getting paid for the hours you're putting in, right? You're not
A
necessarily getting
guaranteed
paid.
pay. Yeah. You're getting
Exactly.
guaranteed pay per hour. And
Plus
you get to go home and
vacations.
sleep. And you can sleep 8 hours at the end of the day. That's
Exactly.
gone. When you
Exactly.
do this, when you do the business. And that's interesting because I also, I had a discussion with someone the other day. In American culture in general, we have this thing where we feel it's almost like a badge of honor to say,
Yeah.
I'm busy. It's
Yeah.
something that you always hear. And when you look at the context of when they're saying it, a lot of people say it as if it means success, or they're
Yeah.
correlating, if I'm busy, that means success.
Yep.
And you have to think of, what's the psychology of a mindset that thinks that I have to keep working all the time, whether they have success or not.
Yep.
Working means good to them.
Yeah. And that's where it starts, that mindset that they feel they have to be busy in order to be successful. And I fell in that same trap. I mean, I didn't really say that before, but then, I don't know how many years ago, but I started noticing, when I asked people, oh, how you doing? And the number one answer was always, I'm busy. I'm busy.
Yeah.
And they're just telling all their whole schedule. And then it started getting to me. I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm doing something wrong because I'm not that busy. So next thing you know, I would start saying that, oh, I'm busy, because I felt I need to
Yeah.
respond, I'm being busy, so that people know that I'm successful, which is
Yeah.
stupid, right? But then
Yeah.
I started buying into it for myself. I was working in pharmaceuticals, then I was starting my consulting business on the side, which meant, I had to work my day job. And then on evenings, I'd work the consulting business to kind of build that up. And I started, it was like 2 a.m. bedtimes were pretty normal at a certain point, because I just kept filling my calendar and my stuff with my to-do list with more and more stuff. And next thing you know, I'm going to bed at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, this is what it's got to be like in order to build the business. But then it got to a point where I was so tired, exhausted by the weekend. And I'm like, wait a second, time out. What am I doing? Right. I'm
Yeah.
falling into the same trap that everybody else is saying, that I've got to be busy. And I said, but it's driving me nuts. It's killing me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's obviously impacting my relationship with Kaylee. And so I said, okay, how about I try to go to bed by 11? And with that, I created a boundary. Let's go to bed by 11 o'clock, which meant then I had to really reassess what I was doing with my time, right? So it forced me to get rid of certain things that were just fillers, that was just busy work, but that wasn't really productive to build the consulting business. And so it forced me to really spend that time spend time on more productive work and not just filler work, just to be busy.
Yeah.
Right. And I really audited my time, where I spent my time, all the activities that I did, and then just started, knocking stuff out. And so, yeah, I fell into the same trap. And you kind of, because you don't create those boundaries of when I go home or when I stop working, you're just going to keep working.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be doing anything better. You're just busier.
So, Robert, I know you're short on time. I wanted to take this time to pick your brain and get into what I think is a very, very interesting business. I do want to ask you, what's the best success story that you've had with a client you've taken on?
So I'll give you two quick examples. One is, just from a pure business side, but it also bleeds into efficiencies and time issues, right? But there was a client pretty recently that lost like $1 million the year before. So they were underwater $1 million,
Wow.
doing about $5 million a year in revenue. And so I come in, and the owner is saying, or there's three owners actually, or three partners, and one of them is saying, the CEO is saying, "Oh, we need to increase sales," right? And I'm like, "No, you're already doing $5 million a year in revenue. Why can't you be profitable?"
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. I mean, we have clients that are doing less than $1 million a year revenue and are, doing about 20% net profit, right? Into sales.
Mm-hmm.
So at 5 million revenue, there's no reason why you shouldn't be profitable. And so really started to assess where they're spending their money, their marketing issues. They're spending way too much money in marketing, pay-per-click ads, looking at their operations, looking at where the owners were spending their time. And long story short, we came up with this list of improvements we had to make. Yeah. From the marketing issues to the operational issues, even with the business owner's time. And we set KPIs on these things, and how do we improve performance? Just like, for example, just the email open rates, right? They're getting sales from emails, from the e-blast or from the email marketing, but their open rates are about 5%. And I'm like saying we should be at 20%, but let's say we just go from 5% to 7.5%. That's a 50% increase in open rates, which means if you're already generating sales from your emails, that's a 50% increase in sales if you don't do anything different besides improving the open rates of your emails, right? So that's an example of looking for just little improvements along the way that got them to break even in a year, right? So we got them from losing $1 million a year revenue to break even in a year just by looking at every aspect of business and looking for little areas of improvement and then doing it, right? And but a lot of businesses, they want the quick fix, and they don't want to go the tedious process of looking at how they improve. The second one is a business owner, highly profitable. So profits weren't an issue, but the owner was just spending way too much time working. And he has a team, and he would brag about how good his team was and how great a job they do and all that. And we have to encourage him and just have to really press, why don't you just let him go more and stop micromanaging? Now, he says, I don't think I micromanage, but as I were questioning him, it was clear that it was micromanaging more than he'd think anyway. I wouldn't consider him the classic micromanager, but he was micromanaging more than he needed to, basically. And I've never heard of a micromanager admit they're a micromanager. So, just get that off the picture. If you're listening and thinking, I'm not a micromanager, you may be a micromanager. But all to say is you don't have to be hovering over people's shoulders all the time, 24/7 to be a micromanager, but just take a step back and say, hey, am I just allowing them to do more than they're capable of doing? And that's interesting. Once he finally did that, because he was on the verge of breakdown, after a few months of that, he realized, the less I do, the more things get done.
There you go.
And so those are two great examples of one was more of a mindset issue. It wasn't a business necessary issue. It was more of a mindset of, because he felt he needed to be doing something, right? It's that busy mentality. I need to be doing something. And hence, I need to be looking over my guy's shoulders when you don't really need to. And so you're keeping yourself busy for things you don't need to do. And then on the business end of it is just looking at small areas of improvement to get the big result that you want.
Love it. Love it. Robert, I want to thank you for giving us the time to let me share with us what you do. Can you tell people how they can actually reach you, where they can find more of you?
Just easiest place to start at our website, marriedentrepreneur.co. Or you can look me up on LinkedIn at Robert Fukui, F as in Frank, UKUI. So those are two great places because on our website, we have our podcast, Thriving in Tandem, as well as the different resources. There's free resources as well as paid resources. And then our book is Tandem, the Married Entrepreneur's Guide for Greater Work-Life Balance. So you can access that off the website as well. So website's a great place to start.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Robert. Come back soon. I look forward to talking to you more in the future. Thank you, man.